Absolutely. We still have 3.6 million births a year, but the problem is teens and young adults. From ages 15 to 19, the fertility rate is down 7%, and it's down 70% over the last 2 decades, meaning we're telling people that are young not to have babies, to wait till they're in a more stable life situation, till they're more financially secure, maybe they haven't found the right partner.
You saying that we want more teenage pregnancies? We want more kids that women can't take care of? Struggling mother can't get WIC, she can't get free lunch for that child, she can't get medical attention for that child because that's her responsibility and nobody told her to go ahead and have that child. But here you are talking about the birth rates are down and we need them to have more children. With whom? Slowly but surely some of these states are rolling back the age of consent. Some of them are rolling back the age that a child can get married. And this is the reason they want these young women with these old men before her frontal lobe has fully developed. Because by the time she finally is aware of what's going on, she'll be saddled down with 4 or 5 of his kids. It is all by design. They don't care about these women or those kids. They just care about the men and the male loneliness epidemic. And they'll do anything to get these incel men married off. Why are you talking about young adults when you're talking about a 15-year-old? That is a child. She's not a young woman. She is a child. This is why a much older man talking about he'll date an 18-year-old is creepy to me, because if he could go lower, he would. The only thing stopping him isn't his morality, it's the law.
Number 1, if you're upset that children are not having children, you need to go to jail. If you're upset that the teen pregnancy, birth, and fertility rates are decreasing, you need to go to jail. Number 2, it is so insane that the generation that yells at us for being financially irresponsible, and the reason why we can't buy houses or whatever else is because we are wasting our money on lattes, is now telling us to have children, which is one of the most financially irresponsible things you can do when you cannot afford it, is so mind-blowingly dumb. It is tough to contain myself with how just hypocritical that is.
Good. Less 15 through 19-year-olds having babies is a good thing. Ideally, that white line, that should be 0. Because 15, 16, and 17-year-olds are minors. They have no business having children. And 18 and 19-year-olds, in my opinion, should not be having children. Because you still have a lot more to learn in life, a lot of responsibilities you got to take on. And especially a lot more financial security that you need to acquire before you even think about bringing a child into this world. So let me ask you this, man. Why are you saying that less 15 through 19-year-olds having babies is a problem? Or better yet, why is somebody at your ripe ass old age concerned with what 15 through 19-year-olds are doing? That is extremely creepy, dude, and it sounds like your hard drive needs searching.
The Trump administration wants teen pregnancy to rise, full stop. Yesterday, Katie Miller, wife of White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller, condemned that teenage birth rate is not higher. Miller said that hormonal birth control is, quote, killing population growth, and that our biological destiny is to have babies. She cited that teen births have crashed 81% since 1991. So let's translate that. They're nostalgic for a time when more girls were having children before they had options. Teen births have dropped 81% since 1991, and that's not a decline, that's progress. Because in 1990, as a little reminder, 43% of teen mothers ended up in extreme poverty within 5 years. Republicans are increasingly clear by the day. The next target is birth control and IVF. You see it in proposals from the Heritage Foundation, behind Project 2025, in state legislation, and in public messaging. Their argument is simple, clear, and being repeated daily. If women didn't have birth control or IVF, they'd have kids earlier, and the birth rates would go up. But data says the opposite. Women are not delaying children because they can. They're delaying children because they have to. Housing, unaffordable. Childcare, unaffordable. Healthcare, unaffordable. Food, unaffordable. And all these things the Trump administration is just making more unaffordable. Birth control doesn't stop families. It makes them possible through family planning. Access to contraception lowers poverty rates, increases earning potential, and helped drive nearly 1/3 of the reduction in the gender wage gap by the 1990s. This is about control and limiting women's choices, and the call is coming from inside the White House.
Women looked at childcare options, rent, and these dating options and said, nah, we good. For the first time in history, the U.S. birth rate has hit a record low. Nearly 50% of 30-year-old women are child-free. And to that, I want to say, congratulations, ladies. Because women looked around and said, wait a minute. Y'all want me to have a baby? In this economy, childcare can cost more than rent. Housing costs more than common sense. Insurance costs more than a peace of mind. Having a baby right now in this economy is like having a group project where everybody else quits and you still got to turn in the assignment. And then on top of that, you got a lot of American men now who don't even like women. They just want convenient access. Like women are an app that you download when you feel bored. So women have done the math and said, yeah, I'm good. Because when you build a society that needs 2 full-time incomes to survive, you also build a society that does not have time for babies. It's like telling folks to plant a garden, but then you pave over their soil. So I'm curious, are you one of these women that don't have any children? Are you happy? Living your best life? Or do you have some regrets? Because it looks like women didn't really stop having babies, more so than they decided not to sign up for the struggle.
There aren't going to be many grandkids coming in. Bloodlines are going to be ending. Because if you can't afford to live for yourself, why would you have a baby? And the worst part is that the people who can't live for themselves are the people having babies. So we're fucked either way. So I think it's my due diligence to not have children. It's really depressing because I think it's every girl's dream to have like a baby. And now it's a nightmare because I can't afford to live for myself. I can't get a job. I can't afford a house. Apartments are literally so fucking expensive. Why would I have a baby? It's like we're literally going through the steps wrong. It's like, just have the baby, and just figure out, no. Your bloodline will end here.
The birth rate just went down another 1%, and I'm confused as to why everybody else is confused. There are 43-year-olds with 5-year-olds who just bought their first home last year. That's why the birth rate is declining. There are 25-year-olds to 30-year-olds still living at home with their parents, and there are 67-year-olds still working a 9-to-5 job because they cannot afford to retire. Meanwhile, gas is also skyrocketing while the U.S. is literally murdering people in Lebanon. Can we
So
get
apparently
a
Fox
fucking
News
grip?
said the quiet part out loud, and I don't think people are really processing what was actually said here. So let me break it down in simple terms. Okay, according to what I heard and what I've translated that to mean. Okay, so a segment discussed falling fertility rates and specifically highlighted that for ages 15 to 19, as in teens, okay, the birth rate is down by around 7%. Now, I don't know how they meant it, okay, but the way it came across, it sounded like the decline is somehow a problem. And I'm sorry, but since was it a bad thing that teenagers are not having babies anymore? Because let's be very clear here, just 15 to 19, that is a child. That is someone who is still under parental care, still in school, still figuring out life. That's not someone who should be pressured directly or indirectly into parenthood. So when you hear messages like, like this broadcasted on a major platform, you have to ask yourself, what exactly is the narrative here? Because from where I'm standing, a drop in teen pregnancy is actually a positive sign. It means more young girls are staying in school. It means more young people are making informed decisions. It means there's more awareness, more access to education, and hopefully more control over their futures. So why frame it like a concern? And here's where it gets even deeper. There's been this ongoing conversation globally about declining birth rates. Governments, media outlets, and commentators keep raising alarms about populations shrinking, economies slowing down, and fewer workers in the future. But the question is, who is expected to fix that? Because if the situation being subtly pushed is for young and younger people to start having children, then that's where we have a serious problem. We are living in a time where the cost of living is through the roof. Rent is high, food prices are rising, jobs are unstable, people in their late 20s and 30s are struggling to afford children. And now we're acting like teenagers not having babies is an issue. Make that make sense. Raising a child is not just about giving birth, it's about emotional readiness, financial stability, mental health, and a support system. And let's be honest, okay? Most 15 to 19-year-olds are not in a position to provide, not because they are failures or failing, but because they're not supposed to yet. They're babies, they're children, right? And what concerns me the most is not just what was said, but that it was said so casually on such a large platform, like it's a normal thing to debate, because you know, how you deliver messages matters, right? What we normalize in conversations like this can slowly shape how people think. And the last thing society should be doing right now is creating pressure, especially on young girls, to feel like they should be having children earlier. That is not empowerment, that's regression. Let's just watch 2 or 3 4 more clips, and then I'll come back at the end of this video to give my own final 2 cents. If it's your first time to be on this channel, go ahead, subscribe, turn on that notification bell so that every time I upload such videos, you guys will be notified. Let's continue watching.
So this really happened. Fox News is blaming 15 to 19-year-olds for the falling fertility rate. Yeah, they're saying 15 and 19-year-olds aren't having enough sex and aren't producing enough babies, and that is, quote, the problem. That is what the guest on Fox, and I use the word here loosely, News, said. He said the problem is that 15 to 19-year-olds aren't having enough children because they're learning that that's not a good idea. Yeah, no shit. The fact that people are consuming this network as news and that somebody is coming on saying the problem that is that our 15-year-olds aren't having enough babies and that's why the fertility rate is falling and that's why that's a problem tells me everything I need to know. This side of the aisle is obsessed with children having babies, with young people, 15 to 19-year-olds not having babies. That ain't the problem. That's a good thing. You shouldn't be having a baby, popping it out in 15 and wanting to push that as the narrative that everybody needs to be doing and that it's a problem if they're not. I don't understand how people get their information from this non-news network and why it's allowed to continue to be called news. Encouraging 15 to 19-year-olds to keep up the fertility rate so we don't fall behind as a population is absolutely insane.
Fucking death sentence for women to bear children in this country as a result of Republicans and their surprise that the fertility rate is fucking dropping. Are you serious? You told women we're not going to give you any fucking health care if you become pregnant because we want to control your body, and you think that they're going to continue to bear fucking children? You told women, yes, a man can rape you and you're still going to have to bear his child, and you think that they're going to want to continue to participate in a system in which they can be fucking raped and then still have to carry their rapist child? Seriously? You told women we're gonna keep you alive on fucking machines just so that we can take your fucking fetus from you, Adriana Smith. And you think that women are going to continue to have fucking children in this country? The level of stupidity and arrogance it takes to believe that you're going to disenfranchise and oppress women and they're going to continue to do the things that you want them to, that's only the arrogance that you get from a fucking man.
Who else remembers when stopping teenage pregnancy was something that politicians in our government ran on? It was a policy in America, right? Stopping teenage pregnancy. Now, this is how I know that the people in charge right now are not those same people. Because of getting into bed with racism in order to keep power, they have allowed some of the sickest of them to get in power. They went from wanting to stop teenage pregnancy to complaining that teenage pregnancy is down and they need to encourage more teenagers to have babies. This lets you know these are not the same people as 20 years ago. These are not the same people as 10 years ago. To be honest, that's why it's projection, everything they say. When they say, oh, black girls were having too many babies as teens, now they're saying they want white girls to have babies as teens. It's all projection. Remember, before Barack Obama, right? Teenage pregnancy was a problem. Now, after Barack Obama, now they want their little girls to go have as many babies as they possibly can. These are not the same people. And we have to get that into our heads and we have to understand that. Right? I'm not saying John McCain was perfect. There's a lot that I didn't agree with him on. I absolutely despise the man for fighting against the Martin Luther King holiday. But you know what? He was honest about who Barack Obama was, and he wasn't going to use racism and xenophobia and Islamophobia as a weapon. And he corrected those people. And then those people went out and found someone who would do all those things, who would be racist, who would be xenophobic, right? Who would be Islamophobic. And they elected him.
So this is about the direction society is quietly trying to push us toward, and whether or not we are paying attention or not, because when you hear such a statement suggesting that declining birth rates among teenagers are a problem, you have to ask yourself, a problem for whom? Is it a problem for the teenagers who now have freedom to pursue education, careers, or personal growth? Or is it a problem for systems that rely on population growth to sustain themselves? And that's where things start to get uncomfortable, starts to make sense, because historically, young women especially have always been placed at the center of these kinds of expectations. When birth rates drop, the conversation almost always circles back to women's bodies, women's choices, and that women should what women should be doing. But here's the reality: choosing not to have a child at 15, 16, 17, 18, or even 19 is not a failure. Okay, it's not a crisis. It's not something that needs to be corrected. It's a sign of awareness, okay? It's a sign that young people are thinking more critically about their futures. They understand the weight of responsibility that comes with raising a child, that they are choosing timing, stability, and readiness over pressure, and that should be respected, not questioned. Because bringing a child into this world is not something that should ever be influenced by fear, societal pressure, or subtle messaging from media platforms. It should be a conscious, intentional decision. Now, let's talk about the economic side of this, because we can't ignore that fact, okay? We are living in a time where even fully grown adults are struggling to survive. The cost of living is high, housing is high, food prices keep rising, healthcare is expensive, education is expensive, everything is expensive. So when people delay having children or choose not to have them at all, it's not because they don't value family. It's because they understand reality and expecting teenagers who haven't even entered the workforce yet to somehow carry that burden. That's not just unrealistic, it's irresponsible, okay? And I think what really caught people off guard with that statement is how disconnected it felt from the real life, okay? Real life, because most people watching that segment are probably thinking the same thing. Why would this even be a concern? Why would that even be broadcasted? Why are we not celebrating the fact that fewer teenagers are becoming parents before they are ready? Why are we not focusing on improving the conditions that make people want to have children when the time is right? Because if governments and media outlets are genuinely concerned about declining birth rates, then the conversation should not start with the teenagers. It should start with them. It should start with them. Okay, it should start with affordability. It should start with creating stable economies, better jobs, better opportunities, accessible healthcare, and support systems that make raising a child feel possible, not overwhelming. Because people are not avoiding parenthood for no reason. They are responsible. They are responding to the world around them. And until those conditions improve, no amount of subtle messaging is going to change that. If anything, it's going to push people even further away from having babies. So when you hear something like this, don't just take it at face value. Think about the bigger picture. Think about what's being said and what's being implied, because sometimes the loudest statements are not the ones that are shouted. They are the ones that are slipped into conversations like this one, okay? And that's exactly why people are reacting the way they are, the way we are. Anyway, I want to hear thoughts on this. Do you think this was taken out of context, or do you feel like this is part of a bigger conversation that people are now just starting to notice? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. And by the way, this video is for entertainment purposes only. And if you made it this far, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your opinion, because we're gonna be on this topic for quite some time. I'll see you in my next video. Please stay peaceful.